Welcome to Simply Debbie Sue's Southern Whispers. Step into a world where front porches hold secrets, faith carries folks through the hardest days, and the mountains whisper stories only the heart can hear. I invite you into tender moments, gentle humor, and the kind of Southern warmth that feels just like home. Welcome in, friends, to another Friday in Southern Whispers. So let's get into the introduction of this story. Some stories arrive like a slow summer breeze, warm, unhurried, carrying the scent of memory and the promise of healing. In the quiet folds of the southern mountains, the whippoorwill's call has long been a companion to the lonely and the hopeful alike. Today's whisper is about a widowed music teacher, a hurting child, and the way grace can slip into two broken lives through the smallest crack of courage. This week's story is called The Song of the Whippoorwill. Della Mae Sinclair's farmhouse sat at the far end of Sycamore Hollow, where the gravel road thinned into dirt and the pines grew tall enough to touch the sky. Once, her home had been a place of laughter, harmony, and Vernon tuning his guitar while she warmed up the piano keys. But since his passing, the house fell hollow, like a shell left behind by something that used to sing. She kept the piano covered with a quilt Vernon's mama had sewn. Dust gathered on the lid. Even the old clock on the shelf went still, like the room asked it to hush. Each evening, she rocked on her porch, listened to the whippoorwill calling from the woods. Its song used to comfort her. Now it only echoed the loneliness. One June afternoon, thunderheads rolled over the ridge, heavy and purple. Della Mae was shelling peas when she heard a timid knock on a screen door. A little girl stood there, barefoot, hair tangled, clutching a worn notebook to her chest. "Ma'am," she whispered, "are you the music teacher?" "I used to be," Della said gently. The girl's voice trembled. "Could you maybe teach me? I don't talk much. Mama says I'm too quiet. But I think maybe music could help me say things." Something in the child's eyes, a mix of fear and hope, cracked open a place in Della Mae she thought had closed forever. "Well, now," she said softly, "come on in." The girl's name was Molly Jane. She moved like someone expecting to be scolded, shoulders tight, eyes downcast. But when she touched the piano keys, her whole face softened. The notes were clumsy, but they were honest. Della Mae felt something stir inside her, a warmth she hadn't felt since Vernon's last song. Molly Jane returned the next day, and the next. She practiced with fierce determination, scribbling little melodies in her notebook. She rarely spoke, but her eyes began to brighten. And slowly, Della Mae found herself humming again while washing dishes, tapping rhythms on the table, even lifting the piano lid without flinching. One evening, as cicadas buzzed and the sky turned lavender, Molly Jane played a simple tune she'd written herself. Halfway through, her hands faltered. "My daddy left last year," she whispered. "I thought maybe if I learned music, I wouldn't feel so empty." Della Mae knelt beside her, placing a gentle hand over her trembling fingers. "Sweetheart," she said, "music doesn't erase the hurt, but it gives the hurt somewhere to go." Through the open window, a whippoorwill began to sing, clear, steady, and sure. Its call wrapped around the child's melody like a second voice. Della Mae felt tears rise, not the heavy ones she'd carried for years, but the kind that washed the dust off a weary soul. A week later, Della Mae surprised Molly Jane by carrying the old guitar Vernon used to play out onto the porch. "I think it's time you learned how music feels outside four walls," she said. They sat together as fireflies blinked across the yard. Della Mae strummed a soft chord. Molly Jane played a gentle melody on a small old little piano. The whippoorwill joined in, its call weaving through their notes like a thread of silver. For the first time in years, Della Mae didn't feel alone. And for the first time in months, Molly Jane didn't feel broken. Word spread through Sycamore Hollow that Miss Della Mae was teaching again. Neighbors began asking when Molly Jane might play for the church or the fall festival. Molly Jane panicked. "I can't play in front of people," she cried. "They'll look at me. They'll hear me. I'll mess up." Della Mae cupped her face gently. Honey, music isn't about being perfect. It's about being brave enough to try. So instead of a recital, Della Mae planned something different. Just the two of them, on the porch, under the stars. Molly Jane played her little melody, the one she'd written the night she finally cried for her daddy. Her hands shook, but she didn't stop. When she finished, Della Mae clapped softly, tears shining. That, she whispered, was the bravest song I've ever heard. As if on cue, the whippoorwill called again, strong, steady, echoing through the pines. Molly Jane looked up. Do you think he's singing with me? I think, Della Mae said, he's singing for you. And for the first time in years, she lifted Vernon's guitar and played along, letting the music carry both their sorrows into the soft, forgiving night. So the reflection of this story is, healing rarely arrives with fanfare. More often, it slips in quietly, a shy child at the door, a trembling melody, a bird calling from the pines. When we offer what little we have left to someone who needs it, God often uses that very offering to mend us too. Like the whippoorwill's song at dusk, grace finds its way to the broken places, teaching us that joy can return even after the longest silence. I hope you enjoyed that story this week. Come back next week for another one. May these stories that I have written wrap around you like a well-loved quilt. May they remind you that God is near, hope is steady, and joy often comes softly, like a whisper on a southern breeze.